You feel the weight before you see it. 20 kilograms of solid gold pressing into the base of your skull, vertebrae compressing with each shuffling step. Your vision blurs at the edges. The metal isn't jewelry. It's engineering, calculated to hurt without killing, designed to bend your spine until you can barely lift your eyes from the dust. And then you hear it. The sound that makes your blood turn to ice. A million throats roaring as one, a tidal wave of noise that rattles your ribs and drowns out thought. They're not cheering for you. They're cheering for your destruction. This is Rome, 2 to 74 AD, and walking through the Via Sacra in chains of pure gold is Zenobia, Queen of Palmyra, the woman who nearly shattered the Roman Empire into pieces. Just months ago, she controlled Egypt, Syria, and most of the eastern provinces. She declared herself Augusta, minted coins with her face, and cut off Rome's grain supply. Now she gasps for air under the weight of her own plundered treasury, while a million Roman citizens scream for her blood. But here's what the history books gloss over. The gold chains are just theater. The real torture is what Rome has planned for after the parade ends. Because when Rome captures a queen, death would be a mercy. What they do instead is so much worse. To understand how a monarch ends up dragged through the streets like a chained animal, you need to understand the miscalculation. Zenobia looked at the Roman Empire in the year 270 and saw a dying beast. She had every reason to believe it. Plague had ravaged the provinces. Barbarian tribes were pouring across the borders, and emperors were lasting about as long as summer flowers, murdered by their own guards, poisoned by rivals, dying of disease before they could even warm the throne. The empire was hemorrhaging territory, drowning in chaos. Zenobia saw an opportunity where others saw only collapse. She was brilliant, educated in Greek philosophy, fluent in multiple languages, and possessed a strategic mind that rivaled any Roman general. When she took Egypt, it wasn't just conquest. It was a calculated strike at Rome's jugular. No Egyptian grain meant Rome starved. It was a master stroke, until a soldier named Aurelian took the purple. Aurelian wasn't a senator's son or a political appointee. He was a career killer who'd clawed his way up through the ranks, a man who understood that Rome wasn't held together by laws or speeches. It was held together by fear. He gathered the legions, crossed into the east, and began systematically destroying everything Zenobia had built. City by city, battle by battle, he pushed her armies back until they were trapped behind Palmyra's walls. The siege was methodical, brutal. Hunger became the enemy inside the gates. People began eating leather, boiling bones. Zenobia knew the end was coming, so she ran. Before we dive deeper into what happened to these women, I'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? It's genuinely mind-blowing that stories like this, buried for centuries, now reach every corner of the planet. Picture it, the dead of night, the desert air cold enough to sting your lungs. Zenobia isn't wearing royal robes. She's dressed like a common traveler, riding a fast camel toward the Euphrates River. The Persian shore is visible in the moonlight, just a few hundred meters of dark water away. If she crosses, she can rebuild. If she crosses, the war continues. But Roman cavalry doesn't sleep. Aurelian's scouts have been watching every gate, every road. They intercept her party at the river's edge, and there's no dramatic final battle. Just soldiers with rough hands grabbing the most powerful woman in the east and throwing her face first into the mud. Royal blood mixes with river water, her crown rolls away into the reeds, and in that moment, something fundamental shifts. She stops being a queen and becomes property. Here's where most captured generals would reach for the blade. Suicide was the honorable exit, the only way to maintain dignity and control your own story. But Zenobia doesn't do it. Whether it's survival instinct or a calculated gamble that submission might save her life, she lets them chain her. She lets them drag her before Aurelian. And the emperor, covered in dust and dried blood, looks at this woman who nearly broke his empire and makes a decision that will echo through centuries. He doesn't kill her, because Aurelian understands something crucial about power. A corpse rots and gets forgotten. Rome doesn't need another dead rebel. Rome needs a spectacle. He needs Zenobia alive, walking, breathing, broken but visible, to prove to every corner of the empire that defying Rome ends in total humiliation. But first, there's a price to extract. They hold a trial in the city of Emesa, though calling it a trial is generous. It's political theater with predetermined outcomes. Roman soldiers drag in Zenobia's advisors, her generals, her philosophers. Among them is Cassius Longinus, one of the great minds of the age, the man who taught her Greek literature and Platonic philosophy. Aurelian offers Zenobia an implicit bargain, her life, in exchange for guilt. And she takes it. She points at her closest friends and advisors and claims she was misled, manipulated by ambitious men who took advantage of her feminine weakness. It's an abject betrayal, a survival calculus made in seconds. The legionaries execute Longinus and the others right there, blood pooling on the stone courtyard while Zenobia watches. She doesn't flinch. She can't afford to. Because showing weakness now means joining them in death. The journey to Rome takes months. Thousands of kilometers on foot, in chains, paraded through every major garrison and provincial capital along the way. At each stop, they bring her out like a carnival attraction. Crowds gather to see the warrior queen who dared challenge Rome, now reduced to a shuffling prisoner. People throw stones, spit, shout obscenities. Town by town, the legend of Zenobia the Great is systematically dismantled, replaced with the image of Zenobia the Defeated. But this is just rehearsal. Aurelian is preparing something Rome hasn't seen in decades, a full triumph, the most sacred and violent ritual in the Roman political religion. And he's designed a special torment specifically for her. Army blacksmiths receive strange orders. Don't forge iron shackles. Take the gold from Palmyra's treasury, melt it down, and create chains so heavy a normal person could barely stand. Gold handcuffs, gold collar. The irony is deliberate and crushing. The wealth she used to fund her rebellion will now be the physical weight that breaks her body. As they approach Italy, word spreads through Rome's streets like wildfire. The Queen of the East is coming in chains. The plebs go wild with anticipation. They want to see if she's as beautiful as the rumors say. They want to see her destroyed. For Zenobia, every step closer to the capital is a step toward the annihilation of everything she was. She knows what happens to captured kings at the end of these parades. Vercingetorix the Gaul, strangled in the Tullianum prison while the crowd cheered above. Jugurtha of Numidia, left to die of cold and starvation in that same underground hole. The question keeping her awake isn't whether she'll die, it's how they'll choose to kill her, and whether it will be quick. The gates of Rome open, and the sound is like nothing human. 1 million people have crammed into every available space, hanging from rooftops, crushing together in the streets, climbing monuments. The triumph begins with exotic animals to prove Rome has conquered nature itself. Tigers, elephants, creatures most Romans believed were myths. Then come wagons loaded with plunder, silver and silk, and statues of foreign gods now reduced to decorative trophies. But nobody's looking at the gold. Everyone's waiting for the woman. When Zenobia appears, the roar becomes deafening, and the sight is grotesque. She's not walking like a queen, she's stumbling like a beast under impossible weight. The gold chains are so heavy that 2 slaves walk beside her, holding the links so they don't snap her neck or rip her arms from their sockets. But they're not helping out of compassion. They're prolonging the show. If she collapses and dies right here, the spectacle ends. Her legs tremble. Sweat pours down her face, washing away makeup, revealing raw terror underneath. The crowd throws garbage, screams insults. Roman women point and mock. There goes the barbarian who thought she could play at being emperor. And marching beside her, also in chains, is Tetricus, the usurper who briefly controlled the western provinces. 2 fallen rulers who together controlled half the known world, now reduced to exhibition animals in a single afternoon. What's going through Zenobia's mind as her sandals touch Roman dust? She's counting steps. She knows the triumph route ends at the temple of Jupiter Capitolinus. She knows the tradition. The victorious general climbs the temple stairs to sacrifice bulls while below, in the darkness of the Mamertine prison, enemy leaders are strangled in synchronized ritual execution. It happened to Vercingetorix. It happened to Simon Bar Giora after the fall of Jerusalem. Zenobia watches the temple grow closer, 800 meters, 500, 200. The procession stops at the base of the Capitoline Hill. The crowd noise drops a single decibel. Guards approach the prisoners. They take the lesser captives, officers, advisors, and drag them left toward the darkness. Screams echo in Aramaic and Palmyrene. Zenobia closes her eyes, waits for the hand on her shoulder, the shove toward the execution chamber. But it doesn't come. Aurelian has made a different calculation. Killing barbarian kings is routine. But killing a woman, especially one who's captured the imagination of the Roman mob with her beauty and audacity, might seem cruel rather than strong. Might seem like fear. And Aurelian fears nothing. He's devised something else, something stranger. A fate that for a warrior queen might actually be worse than death. They don't take her to prison. They lead her to a villa outside Rome, near Tibur. Remove the gold chains, dress her in Roman matron's clothing. They give her servants, a house, tell her she's free within the property limits. Aurelian hasn't forgiven her. He's erased her. The great rebel, the woman who split the empire, condemned to spend her remaining years organizing household dinners, weaving wool, and aging in comfortable obscurity, while the world she tried to conquer keeps turning without her. For a woman who commanded armies and ruled provinces, this quiet domestic erasure might be the cruelest punishment Rome could devise. But the story of Rome's cruelty toward queens doesn't end with Zenobia, because she was lucky. Decades earlier, another royal family wasn't granted even the mercy of exile. When Rome wants to break not just a woman, but an entire people's spirit, humiliation takes a darker form. We have to go north to the rain and mud of Britannia to understand the true depths of Roman brutality. The year is 60 AD. King Prasutagus of the Iceni tribe has just died. He was a client king, a collaborator who believed he could buy his family's safety by playing Rome's game. In his will, he left half his kingdom to Emperor Nero and half to his 2 daughters. He thought it was insurance. He thought Rome respected its own laws. The naivety is almost tragic. The Roman procurator Catus Decianus doesn't send diplomats. He sends soldiers and tax collectors with license to plunder. When Prasutagus's widow Boudica comes out to demand respect for her husband's will, Rome's response is systematic state terrorism. They tie the queen to a post in front of her own people and flog her like a common slave. The whip opens her royal back. Blood stains the earth. But the physical horror is just the opening act. What happens to her 2 daughters is what transcends time as pure atrocity. Roman officers look at the king's teenage daughters, noble virgins whose purity is sacred in Celtic culture, and see them as surplus assets in a liquidation. They order the legionaries to drag the princesses into public view and rape them systematically in front of the assembled tribe, in front of their bleeding mother. This isn't random violence. It's calculated political destruction. By violating the daughters' bodies, Rome is destroying their future, their ability to marry into power, their legitimacy to rule, their very existence in the dynastic structure. They're using rape as an eraser, wiping these women from the political map with their own bodies as the instrument. When the soldiers finish and walk away laughing, pocketing silver from the plundered household, they believe they've broken the Iceni spirit forever. They believe no one will dare resist after this. It's the most catastrophic miscalculation in Roman Britain's history, because Boudica doesn't break. While washing blood from her daughters' bodies, something inside her dies, and something else is born, something cold, calculating, and absolutely murderous. Rome lit a fuse in that moment, and the explosion will leave a layer of red ash beneath modern London that archaeologists still find 2,000 years later. Rome could be equally vicious toward the most sophisticated royalty in the world. In 46 BC, Julius Caesar organizes 4 triumphs to celebrate his conquests. On the day dedicated to Egypt, Princess Arsinoe IV walks in chains through Rome. She's Cleopatra's younger sister, maybe 20 years old. A girl who had the audacity to lead an army against Caesar himself in Alexandria. For that humiliation, Caesar wants to see her destroyed. But something unexpected happens. The crowd, that brutal Roman mob that usually screams for blood, goes quiet. They look at this chained Hellenistic princess, delicate and tragic, and feel not triumph, but pity. Murmurs spread. Is this necessary? Does Caesar need to crush a girl to prove his greatness? Pity in a Roman crowd is dangerous. It can turn to anger against the victor. Caesar, the shrewdest politician who ever lived, reads the room instantly and spares her life. She's exiled to the temple of Artemis in Ephesus, sacred ground where supposedly no one can touch her. Arsinoe breathes. She thinks she's survived. But years later, after Caesar's assassination, Mark Antony takes control of the East and falls under Cleopatra's spell. And one night, Cleopatra makes a simple request. She wants her sister's head. Arsinoe is a rival to the Egyptian throne as long as she breathes. What happens next violates every sacred law of antiquity. Roman assassins arrive at the temple of Artemis, enter the sanctuary, and find Arsinoe clinging to the goddess's statue, screaming for divine protection. They drag her from the altar and slit her throat on the temple steps. Her blood stains sacred ground. It's a sacrilege that horrifies the Greek world, but it sends a message more powerful than any military victory. There is no refuge from Rome. Not in temples, not with gods. If the state wants you dead, it will find you anywhere and kill you like an animal. This lesson burns into Cleopatra's mind. She watches from a distance and learns the most important thing: never let them take you alive. Because she knows if she ever loses, Rome won't show her the mercy they showed Arsinoe. And when the day comes, when Mark Antony's fleet burns at Actium and Octavian's legions march on Alexandria, she knows exactly what's coming. Octavian doesn't want her dead. He needs her for his triumph. He needs the great Egyptian queen walking in chains to legitimize his power. She's the centerpiece of his political coronation. He sends messengers promising safety, trying to keep her alive long enough to parade through Rome. But Cleopatra knows Roman cruelty. She's seen it, studied it, feared it, and she refuses to be anyone's trophy. The psychological chess game that follows is extraordinary. Octavian stations guards around her mausoleum, orders them to watch her constantly, removes every sharp object, searches her clothing for poison. He needs her healthy and beautiful for the parade. But Cleopatra is always 3 moves ahead. She asks for a bath, dresses in royal finery as the goddess Isis, requests a lavish meal, and writes one letter, a suicide note addressed to Octavian requesting burial beside Mark Antony. The moment the messenger leaves, she drinks poison or presses an asp to her breast. Historians still debate the method. When Roman soldiers break down the door minutes later, they find her dead on a golden bed, her 2 handmaids dying at her feet, adjusting the diadem on their queen's head with their final breaths. A furious Roman soldier shakes one of the dying women and demands to know what happened. The handmaid looks at her queen, perfect and untouchable, and delivers antiquity's most defiant line: "It is exceedingly well done, and worthy of the descendant of so many kings." Octavian enters and understands immediately. He has won Egypt, but lost Cleopatra. She denied him the final humiliation. She will not walk his triumph. She will not be owned. If Rome must see a queen, he will invent one. Months later, a golden statue of Cleopatra, a painted asp biting her arm, is dragged through Rome in chains. The crowd applauds, but everyone knows they're cheering a prop. The real woman escaped the narrative. Others were not so lucky. When Rome wants a voice erased, it sends the body to the Tullianum. Jugurtha of Numidia learned this after daring to call Rome corrupt. Betrayed and captured in 104 BC, he is stripped naked, jewelry torn from his flesh, and thrown into a stone pit beneath the city. No light, no food, no water. For 6 days he starves, laughing madly in the dark, until Rome's shame dies quietly underground. Vercingetorix waits longer, 6 years in a cell, preserved only to decorate Caesar's triumph. When the parade ends, he turns left into death. A rope, a crack. Gaul collapses into silence. Once the wheel turns. Emperor Valerian is captured by Persia. Each morning he is dragged out and used as King Shapur's human footstool. Rome made spectacle of others. Now Rome is the spectacle. This is Roman power, not law or marble, but the ability to turn kings into warnings and suffering into theater.